You're about to make a mistake. And not just any mistake, the kind that sets you back months emotionally, the kind that reopens wounds you were finally starting to close. You're hovering over that message, rereading it, editing, deleting, rewriting, wondering, should I send it? Don't, because here's the truth you haven't heard yet. The moment you text them again, you're not just reaching out, you're reaching backwards. Back to confusion, back to pain, back to chasing someone who made a choice. And it wasn't you. I know how hard it is. That silence feels like rejection. You just want clarity, closure, something. But what you're really doing is giving them more power, more validation, while stripping away your own. And that's what they count on. That you'll crack, that you'll come back, that your silence is just temporary. But what if this time you don't? What if this time you don't send the I miss you text? You don't ask if they're okay. You don't beg for crumbs of attention. What if instead you sat with that discomfort and let it grow into strength? Because the people who truly care, they don't need a reminder. And the ones who don't, no text in the world will change that. Trust me on this, the moment you choose silence, not out of revenge, but out of respect for yourself, is the moment everything shifts. And that's when the power returns to you. Let's get brutally honest for a second. The urge to text them again. It's not just about them. It's about you, your nervous system, your trauma, your need for resolution. See, we're not addicted to the person. We're addicted to the cycle, the highs and lows, the dopamine spike when they finally respond, the anxiety when they don't. It's a chemical loop, and the silence, it feels like withdrawal. That moment you pick up your phone and think, what if I just check in? What if I just say, hey? It's not because they deserve your energy. It's because you're trying to relieve that tension in your chest. You want certainty, closure, a reaction, any reaction. Because silence feels like being forgotten, and no one wants to feel forgettable. But let's be real. That urge to text isn't love. It's fear. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of being replaced. Fear that you weren't enough. And if you just say the right thing, maybe, just maybe, they'll come back. That's not connection. That's survival mode. Somewhere deep in your past, maybe childhood, maybe a past relationship, you were taught that you have to earn love, that if someone pulls away, you have to fix it. Chase, prove your worth. That love is conditional. That silence means danger. But the truth, healthy love doesn't make you feel anxious. It doesn't make you question your value. And it definitely doesn't require a last message to make someone stay. The urge to text again is your inner child asking, am I still lovable? And listen, that question deserves an answer, but not from them, from you. You're not weak for feeling this way. You're human. Every part of you that wants to reconnect is really just trying to feel safe. But safety doesn't come from someone who ghosted you, breadcrumbed you, or kept you guessing. It comes from your ability to sit in discomfort and remind yourself, I don't chase what's unsure about me. Let them wonder. Let the silence speak. Because every time you resist that urge, you rewire your brain. You break the pattern. And the best part, it gets easier. You don't need their response to feel validated. You don't need their attention to feel wanted. You just need one thing, your own commitment to yourself, to your peace, and to the version of you that finally says, I've sent my last text. Let's get something straight. No contact is not a strategy to get them back. It's not a mind game. It's not reverse psychology. And if you're going into no contact thinking, this will make them miss me, you're already setting yourself up for disappointment. Here's the real truth about no contact. It's not about them. It's about you. Finally choosing peace over chaos, self-worth over validation, and clarity over confusion. No contact isn't silence to manipulate. It's silence to heal. Because every time you reach out, hoping for closure, a reaction, or just a crumb of connection, you're reinforcing a belief that says their response defines my value. But when you go no contact, truly fully, you're telling yourself a different story. I don't need to beg to be seen. Let's be honest, no contact feels like hell at first. It feels unnatural, because you've trained your mind to believe that communication equals sign control. That if you can just say the right thing, maybe things will change. But the real shift, it happens in the silence. You start noticing how much energy you were pouring into someone who gave you just enough to keep you hooked. You start seeing all the excuses you made for their inconsistency, their distance, their mixed signals. And slowly, not all at once, you start reclaiming your power. You realize you don't need closure from someone who couldn't offer clarity while they had access to you. You realize that their silence wasn't a puzzle to solve. It was an answer. No contact is you stepping off the roller coaster. It's you choosing stillness over emotional whiplash. And it's the first time in a long time that your nervous system gets to exhale. Here's the hardest part though. They might come back. A text, a "Hey stranger," a story reply. And that's when the real test begins. Because no contact isn't just about deleting a number. It's about building a new standard for who gets to access you. So ask yourself, if they come back, will you break your silence or protect your peace? No contact isn't about revenge. It's about recovery. And if you do it right, you won't be sitting around hoping they miss you. You'll be too busy becoming someone who would never tolerate what you once settled for. That's the truth no one tells you. And that's why no contact isn't weakness. It's warrior mode, with your healing as the win. The silent rejection that somehow feels louder than words. One day you're texting, laughing, maybe even planning the future, and then suddenly, nothing. No explanation, no goodbye, just digital dust. And it messes with your head. You replay every conversation. You scroll through messages trying to spot the moment it went wrong. You start to wonder, was I too much? Not enough? Did I scare them away? But here's what ghosting really means, and I want you to hear this loud and clear. It's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their capacity. People ghost when they don't have the emotional maturity to handle discomfort, when they don't know how to communicate honestly, when confrontation feels harder than cowardice. And sure, it hurts. It feels like they took the easy way out. But in truth, ghosting is one of the clearest signs that someone lacks the emotional depth you were probably craving anyway. Think about it. Do you really want to build anything meaningful with someone who disappears at the first sign of vulnerability, at the first moment of realness? Their silence says more than any goodbye ever could. It says, I don't have the tools to face you directly. It says, I'm not ready for real connection. It says, this was always going to be about me, not us. Ghosting leaves a void, not just from their absence, but from the lack of closure. And that's the part that keeps you stuck. Because closure feels like something they owe you. But what if you gave it to yourself instead? What if you stopped needing the why? What if you stopped seeing their silence as proof you weren't enough, and started seeing it as proof that they weren't capable? Because here's the truth. No one tells you people who ghost are often looking for a shortcut out of responsibility. It's not personal. It's patterned. They'll do it again, to the next person, and the one after that. But you get to break the cycle. Don't chase someone who vanished like a shadow. Don't romanticize silence. Don't fill in the gaps with fantasies of what could have been. When someone ghosts you, they're telling you they're emotionally unavailable. And instead of seeing that as rejection, see it as redirection, away from someone who never had the capacity to meet you where you are. You don't need a text back. You need truth. And sometimes the most painful endings are the clearest beginnings. Let them disappear. You're not the one who vanished. They are. And that makes all the difference. Think about the last time you double texted. Waited hours just to see if they read your message or checked their story to decode their mood. You told yourself you were being patient, being loyal, giving them space. But deep down, if you're being honest, what you were really doing was hoping. Hoping they'd wake up, hoping they'd choose you, hoping your silence would make them miss you, or that your message would somehow be the one that made them come back around. That line between respect and desperation, it's thinner than we like to admit, because desperation doesn't always look like begging or pleading. Sometimes it's subtle. It's texting first, every time. It's tolerating one-word replies. It's justifying their distance, excusing their mixed signals, giving them unlimited chances, all while shrinking yourself to keep the connection alive. But here's the truth. Every time you choose someone who's not choosing you, you're not being loyal. You're being unfaithful to yourself. And I get it. You're not desperate for them. You're desperate for what you thought it could be, the potential, the fantasy, the version of them they showed you in the beginning. But attachment to potential is the fastest way to lose your self-respect, because potential doesn't hold you at night. Potential doesn't text you back. Potential doesn't make you feel safe. Real respect for yourself starts when you stop trying to earn someone else's, when you stop handing out access to someone who's barely showing up, when you realize that love isn't something you have to chase, perform for, or shrink yourself to keep. Desperation says, I'll take whatever I can get, just don't leave me. Respect says, if this is all you're offering, I'll walk away. Ask yourself, what would someone who fully respects themselves do right now? Would they be checking their phone every hour, waiting for breadcrumbs? Or would they be moving forward, focused on a life that doesn't revolve around someone who made them feel like an option? Every time you reach out to someone who's ignoring you, you're not just texting them, you're abandoning yourself. That's what makes it hurt so deeply. Not just their absence, but your own. This moment, right here, right now, is your opportunity to shift, to stop proving, chasing, explaining, to start choosing silence not as a punishment, but as protection. Because when you finally draw that line, when you stop accepting bare minimum and start holding yourself to a higher standard, that's when everything changes. That's when your energy becomes expensive. That's when the people who once took you for granted start to notice they lost access, not because you were trying to teach them a lesson, but because you finally learned one yourself. So what if you already texted? What if you broke no contact, poured your heart out, or sent that just checking in message? And now you're here feeling regret, embarrassment, or even worse, silence in return. First of all, breathe. You didn't ruin everything. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're human. And healing doesn't happen in a straight line. The truth is, most people slip up. You had a moment where your heart overruled your head. A moment where hope whispered louder than logic. It happens. And it's okay. What matters more than the message you sent is the message you send yourself now. See, the real trap isn't in breaking no contact. It's in what comes after. The spiral. You start replaying every word, analyzing the lack of reply, feeling like you've lost your dignity. But here's the reframe. That moment doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do next. You don't need to double down on the mistake by sending another follow-up, another sorry, just ignore that text, or another attempt to undo what's been done. That's not damage control. That's self-abandonment. The power move now. Go silent. Let your pause speak louder than your panic. Let your stillness rebuild the respect you think you lost. Because here's a little secret. Silence after a mistake is stronger than silence that was never tested. You've shown them your vulnerability. Now show them your boundaries. And if you're thinking, but what if they never respond? Ask yourself this. Do you really want to keep investing in someone who needs constant reminders that you exist? Or would you rather use this as the moment you finally step out of the loop? One message doesn't erase your progress. What you've built, the clarity, the strength, the momentum, it's still there. And this could actually be your breakthrough moment. The one where you finally realize texting them didn't fix the emptiness. It didn't bring closure. Because the truth is, what you're craving isn't a reply. It's a sense of control, a sense of connection. But if they didn't meet you with energy, clarity, or respect, they were never the source of that connection. You are. So give yourself grace, then give yourself space. Don't judge yourself for the slip-up. Use it as fuel to go deeper into your healing. Use it as evidence that external validation will never replace internal peace. You don't have to be perfect to walk away with power. You just have to stop going back. And the next time your fingers hover over that keyboard, remember, real strength is built in the pause, not the message. Silence isn't weakness. It isn't avoidance. And it's not about playing games. Silence is power. Not the kind of power that controls others, but the kind that brings you back to yourself. When you stop texting, stop explaining, stop fighting for clarity from someone who only gives you confusion. You stop bleeding your energy out into places that never deserved it. That pause, that space you create by doing nothing, it's not empty, it's sacred, because silence is where you finally hear you. It's where you stop reacting and start reflecting. It's where your nervous system settles, where your thoughts sharpen, where your self-worth begins to regenerate. And ironically, silence does more talking than words ever could. Your silence says, I'm done chasing confusion. I trust that the right people don't need reminders. I'm no longer afraid of walking away. The most powerful shift happens when you stop sending signals to someone who already made the choice to fade. Because the truth is, silence forces people to face themselves. It creates a mirror. And in that mirror, they see what they lost, or what they never had the capacity to hold. Will they come back? Maybe, but here's the better question. Will you still want them if they do? Because by then your silence will have built something better than attention. It will have built clarity. And here's what most people miss. Reclaiming power doesn't mean being cold. It doesn't mean pretending you don't care. It means caring deeply about your energy, your standards, your emotional safety, and choosing not to beg anyone to respect that. You don't win them back by texting. You don't win by explaining. You win by walking, not dramatically, not with ego, just quietly, fully, finally, and in that silence, they'll feel the weight of your absence, not because you were playing hard to get, but because they took for granted someone who finally realized their own worth. Reclaiming power through silence isn't about punishment. It's about choosing peace over performance. Let your quiet be a message. Let your stillness speak the boundary. Let your absence echo louder than your presence ever had to. And if they come back confused, wondering why you stopped reaching out, let them wonder, because your power doesn't live in their reply. It lives in your ability to say nothing and still know exactly who you are. That's the real flex. That's how you win. Emotional detachment gets a bad reputation. People think it means not caring, being cold, shutting down, but that's not it at all. Emotional detachment isn't about turning off your heart. It's about reclaiming ownership of it. It's when you stop tying your worth to someone's presence or your peace to their attention. It's when you stop feeling like you have to monitor their moods to feel secure. It's when their silence no longer unravels you, when their inconsistency doesn't destabilize you, when their return or their absence stops defining your day. That's not cold, that's freedom. See, emotional detachment is the moment you realize, I can love you, I can care about you, and still choose myself. It's not that you don't feel, it's that you've learned not to attach your identity to feelings that come from people who haven't earned access to your heart. And that's powerful. Because when you're emotionally fused with someone, you lose yourself. Their behavior becomes your weather forecast. They text, and it's sunny. They ignore you, and it rains. Your mood, your confidence, your clarity, it all starts to orbit around someone else's unpredictability. But when you detach, you come home to yourself. You remember that your emotions are yours to manage, that their chaos isn't your responsibility, that their approval isn't the finish line. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring in proportion to reality, not based on fantasies, not based on potential, but based on how someone actually shows up. And here's the beautiful part. When you detach, you stop chasing, you stop begging, you stop trying to decode every text or lack of response. You stop putting your emotional well-being on a leash someone else can yank at any time. You find stability within. And the irony is, when you detach, not with bitterness, but with quiet confidence, that's when everything shifts. The dynamic changes. People notice, because emotional detachment speaks volumes. It says, I don't need to control this. I just refuse to collapse in the middle of it. This is where your healing gets real. When you can look at the same situation that used to break you and feel peace, not because it changed, but because you did. That's when you know you've detached. You don't have to stop loving. You just have to stop abandoning yourself in the process. And when you get to that place, that's not apathy. That's strength. That's not giving up. That's letting go. And that right there is your freedom. So, should you ever reach out again? The truth is, sometimes the answer isn't black and white. But let's be clear. You don't reach out because you're lonely. You don't reach out to reopen a door that already closed itself. You reach out only if your peace won't be disturbed by their silence. If you still need a reply to feel okay, you're not ready to reach out, because reaching out, if it's ever going to be right, has to come from power, not pain, from clarity, not chaos, from fullness, not fear. Before you ever send that message, ask yourself, what am I hoping to gain? Closure? That's internal. A second chance? They already showed you how they handle access to you. Clarity. Would it actually help, or just reopen a wound you've worked hard to close? Sometimes, silence isn't the absence of communication, it's the conclusion. But, in rare cases, yes, there may come a time where you feel grounded, healed, and centered. And in that space, if you have something to say, not to get something, but to say something, you can choose to speak. Not to fix it, not to resume the cycle, not to reopen an old chapter, but to honor your voice. That's the test. If they don't reply, can you still hold your peace? If the answer is no, don't send the message, because it's not communication, it's a craving. Here's the truth. When you've done the inner work, your reasons shift. You're no longer looking to be chosen. You're choosing you first. You stop reaching out with hope in your hands and start showing up with boundaries in your voice. Maybe you send a message for clarity. Maybe it's a final closure note. Maybe it's simply, I wish you well, not because you want them back, but because you've moved forward. But let this be your rule. Never reach out if you're still bleeding. Never reach out while you're still asking, why didn't they? If the conversation will cost you your peace, it's too expensive. And most of the time, the answer isn't reaching out, it's rising above. Because eventually you'll realize, the most powerful message you'll ever send is the one you never have to. Not out of ego, not out of pride, but because they were never meant to hear from the healed version of you. The healed version doesn't chase. The healed version doesn't need permission to move on. So if you're still wondering if you should reach out, maybe the silence is already saying everything that needs to be said. Here we are, the final moments.